Hi, I'm back. There was a few things that I left out of that video, or the two videos that I recorded a few days ago and uploaded regarding the predators and perverts. What I left out is that, I was talking about how you have to be aware of the predators and recognize the predators amongst adults and children. I also mentioned that you have to pay attention to who your children are hanging around with and who your children are talking to, especially on the internet. What I didn't mention is that you have to also, unfortunately, be aware of the types of people who are babysitting and caring for your children when you're not around. That includes daycare, babysitter, and unfortunately your own family members sometimes. I'm going to tell you a brief story about my sister. 3 of my sisters were using this babysitter recommended by a friend, and they all had their children at one time going to this babysitter. They didn't use that babysitter very long. I think maybe about 2 days or 3 days. The last day that they used the babysitter, my sister walked into the babysitter's apartment and she realized that the babysitter's apartment reeked of weed. Another thing that she noticed when she went to pick up all of the children is that the children were eager to get the hell up out of there. They all ran over to her, and 2 of the children that were old enough to speak told her that they didn't like being with that babysitter and that she had been smoking all day and blowing smoke in their face, and was sometimes spoke very meanly to them. After that, she told my other sisters about that situation, and they all agreed that they shouldn't allow that woman to babysit their children anymore after that. That just goes to show that you can't trust people. You can never be too careful about investigating who it is that are taking care of your children when you're not available. And that goes for your family, your friends, and whoever you're leaving in charge of caring for your children. Another thing that I didn't mention is that you have to also be aware of who you're living amongst, because there's people who are sexual predators that you don't know about living in your community. I'm going to give you another example. A couple of my relatives, 2 different relatives had sexual predators or registered sex offenders living right next door to them, and for a while they had no clue. One of my relatives, intuitively, she decided to look up the neighbor to find out if he had a record, or she just felt funny about this particular person, the way that he carried himself, the way that he spoke to the other people who live with him. And she just felt that something about this guy was off, that he was bad news. So she looked him up and found out that he was a registered sex offender. I mean, sometimes there's nothing that you can do about there being a registered sex offender living next to you. It just depends on the local and state laws, whether these people are allowed to live within the proximity of families that have children. But it's helpful to be aware of who you're living amongst. That way you can take measures to protect yourself and to prevent something from happening to your family. And there's I believe there's a national registry of sex offenders, for you to go and look up people by name, or I think address, to find out if there's any people living near you in your neighborhood that are on that list. And so I had another relative who happens to be a male to look up his next door neighbor because he found out that his next door neighbor was selling drugs. So he didn't feel right about him after that. So he went ahead and looked up this guy's record and found out that he is a registered sex offender. You never know. You never know unless you take proactive measures and investigate people to find out what their background is and what their history is as far as children are concerned. And then sometimes there could be people who go undetected for years doing bad things to children and other people. They never develop a record because they're adept at not getting caught. So I just think you shouldn't trust anybody, to be honest. Don't put nothing past people because you never know. You don't know what's going on in the inner workings of anyone's mind. So you can never know what someone will do and what they won't do. You can only guesstimate about someone's true character and nature, unless they give you something, a reason to think otherwise about them. There's a saying that goes something like, the best offense is a good defense. And I think that is so true. It mostly applies to strategy in war, but it also applies in real life. You have to know, the best defense, in my opinion, is to have knowledge about yourself. You have to know yourself inside out. And you also have to have knowledge of the way that the system works, as well as knowledge about how your enemy moves, thinks, and works. You have to understand their modus operandi. Most predators, I would think, would take the path of least resistance. Some predators like a challenge, but most of them, I would think, look for easy prey, easy targets. That's why in the other video that I uploaded, I mentioned the fact that they look for perceived weaknesses and vulnerabilities, because those will give them signs of an easy prey. Most of the time, they perceive children, the elderly, people who are somehow maybe mentally incapacitated or physically incapacitated as easy prey. They're not going to prey on someone who they think is going to put up a strong resistance. Most likely they're not going to think about launching an offensive or attack against someone who they would perceive as being strong, or a person who would have the capability to put up a good resistance against their attack. I think that's going to be it for now. If I can think of anything else, I'll probably upload another video. The only thing I can think of to say at this point is that not only do you have to worry about sexual predators, you also have to worry about people who prey upon you for your money and your resources. And in a way, it works the same way. They look for people who they think are vulnerable and weak. So that's all I have to say right now. That's all I can think of. If I have anything else to say, I'll probably upload another video on this subject. Thank you.